Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just broke down those CFP rankings that came out yesterday. Miami's still the top ACC team. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand where they're coming from there. Georgia has dropping out all the way from the CFP conversation, or from the picture at least. Going to be interesting to watch what they can do this weekend and if they can jump right back into it. But let's get into the Pitt-Clemson game because this is a huge one. This is a massive one in the ACC and one that could just decide who goes to the ACC championship against SMU at the end of the day. But obviously, Miami's going to try to get in their way. But this is a huge one in Pittsburgh and definitely one that regardless of what happens, one of these teams is still in the ACC race. One of these teams is outright out, and that's the end-all, be-all. They would need Syracuse or possibly Wake Forest to trip up Miami the rest of the way. But other than that, if they can win this game, they're at least still in the race, and then all of the energy gets put on Miami the rest of the way. So Pitt is in the same exact boat as Clemson in a lot of different ways, where you obviously have had a tough couple of weeks. You've had not necessarily played your best football, especially offensively. You have a chance to get it all back right here. You have a chance to kind of reset the clocks, even if Pitt doesn't make it to the ACC title. You have a win over Clemson. You're probably going 10-2 on the season, and you're right on the outside looking in. That's a really big win, and it puts this program in a really good place going forward. Obviously, you want to get to the ACC title, want to get another shot at the SMU Mustangs, but as of right now, I think this is a huge season for Pitt, and definitely one that they can build off of. Clemson's offense has come crashing back down to earth, kind of like Pitt's has. They have struggled on third down. Cade Klubnik has not been nearly as accurate. The O-line has really struggled the last couple of weeks, so there's a lot of things here for Clemson that they might just have to gut out this win and then hope that Miami slips up somewhere along the way. But definitely a lot that's going into this one. And I think the main thing for Pitt here is who's going to the starting quarterback going to be. It feels like Eli Holstein is going to be ready to roll. But Nate Yarnell's right there, and he played some good football at different times this year. And regardless of who plays, I do think it'll be Holstein that trots out there with the first team. I feel like he is healthy enough to do that. The leash is not going to be very long. If Holstein makes one mistake or two mistakes early on in this game, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Nate Yarnell pretty early on. And then on the other side for Pitt, for that Pitt defense, you got Phil Maffa running at you. This is a very, very talented running back. Guys topped 150 yards in the last, I think, 3 games. And they are 20th in the country in rush yards allowed per game. So it's kind of a good-on-good matchup. That Clemson offensive line, not great at pass pro all the time. Pretty good at run blocking and getting downhill when they really commit to it. Going to be interesting to watch, and if they can't get the run game going, if Phil Maffa is held under 50 yards, 60 yards in this game, and a lot is put on Cade Klubnik's shoulders, there's probably mistakes on the way. That is something that has happened to Cade pretty much throughout his career, and it's definitely something that could really affect him in this game because this is one of those games where it feels like only a couple of mistakes or a couple of 50-50 plays could totally decide this thing. And then for Clemson, I think this is a huge game regardless of the ACC implications. Let's say you win this game, but Miami wins the rest of the way and they're in the ACC title. You still have 10 wins on the table. Now, if you lose, you're still looking at South Carolina at the end of the day, and you could have 8-4 on the table very quickly. Now, I'll be totally honest. Even if they win this game, I'm not sure I would love them against South Carolina. But at the very least, it would keep them in the ACC race and get them to 9 wins, which is a moniker. It's not necessarily the one that Clemson wants to be a part of, but it definitely is a benchmark for this season and puts them in a bowl game. They can get to 10 wins and then just take stock. Figure out where you are at the end of the season. But obviously, they're still playing for plenty here, and we'll see what happens on this one. But the big-time thing here is Cade Klubnik hasn't necessarily made a ton of mistakes. He hasn't necessarily turned the ball over a ton or given the ball away and just totally ruined drives. What he has done is missed a lot of receivers. His completion percentage has gone way down the last couple of weeks, and it needs to get back up. It's one of those back ends. It's one of those groups on the defensive side for Pitt that you can take advantage of. If you are on target, if you are hitting your receivers in stride, you will be able to find big plays downfield. He just hasn't been able to do that lately. So it's going to be interesting to watch if he can kind of get over that, move forward, and hit a couple of big plays in this game because that could really just be the entire thing. And then on the other side for the quarterback, we'll just see what happens with Eli Holstein. It's really just about his health. We'll see how healthy he is. And if he's not fully healthy, then will that quarterback run game be what it needs to be for them to get this win? So Pitt is reeling right now, lost 2 straight, and 3 would turn it into, from an undefeated season into just a nightmare season in a hurry. It would be absolutely crazy collapse for them, and it's going to be a really fun game. The Pitt fan base knows what this is about. Clemson knows what's on the line, and it's going to be one that I think these teams get after each other a little bit offensively. But some players to watch. I think Desmond Reed is someone you're just going to want to watch in this game for about a million reasons. He's the best player offensively for Pitt. He also is someone that they just got to get the run game going. One way or another, they have to find a way to get the run game at least rolling downhill, and it's going to be tough to do, but this is the guy that can kind of open that offense, not only in the run game, but in the receiving game, is a huge player and definitely one that can totally change this one. And then we got Braylon Lovelace, the other number 0 on this team. He had 9 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss against Virginia, and he's playing a team and a running back in particular in Phil Maffa where he's going to have to play with a lot of aggression. He's going to have to be flying downhill and meet that guy at the line of scrimmage and drive him backwards. It's going to be really, really interesting to see the battle between these linebackers in this run game for Clemson, and Braylon Lovelace is going to be as big of a part of that as really anyone. Jake Briningstool is someone I want to talk about for Clemson because I think you look at this Clemson pass game, it has lost that explosivity downfield, and you're going to want to find that at some point in this game. The best way to do that is to run the ball and then get your tight end on those short outs, on those short drags is what I'm looking for, on those curl routes, whatever you can do to get him the ball close to the line of scrimmage, let him make some plays after the catch. I think it's going to set you up really well for that 1 or 2 really big plays downfield, and also will get Cade Klubnik into a rhythm, which you very badly need. And then on the defensive side of the ball, TJ Parker is an absolute monster coming off the edge for that Clemson defensive line, and you look at this Pitt team, those quarterbacks do not look comfortable. Whenever they're back there in the pocket, especially with the Holstein injury, it looks like he's just not fully comfortable, not fully there, and definitely something that if they can get home a couple of times with TJ Parker and a couple of the other guys on this defensive line, it's going to be a nightmare for them to figure out for Pitt. And then ways Clemson can win, you got to get Cade Klubnik comfortable early. There's no way you're going to be able to win this game if he just has to outright make plays over and over and over again down the middle of the field. He's going to have to get a couple of dump-off passes to Antonio Williams, a couple of screens to Bryant Wesco or TJ Moore. He's going to have to get those plays because if he doesn't, then he's going to be under 50% completion again. This Pitt back end is going to be able to pick off a couple of the wayward passes, and you're not going to be able to get that run game going the way you want because they don't have to fear the pass game. So definitely something that they're going to want to get Cade Klubnik comfortable early, and if they can't, then this one could spiral in a hurry. But the other thing, the pass rush just has to be in attack mode. I don't think this Pitt offense is going to be able to operate if they can't get this pass game going, and really if they can't get that quarterback out of the pocket and get him running. If they have people on him pretty much every which way from Tuesday, it's going to be really hard to do that. So TJ Parker, Barrett Carter, you have Peter Woods in the interior of that defensive line. Anything you can do to just collapse that pocket, make things more uncomfortable, push them out of that pocket, and then make them create with their legs, it's probably going to be a big benefit for you. Eli Holstein is capable of creating with his legs, but if that's the best offense that Pitt is putting together on Saturday, then they're in a really bad position. And then find the explosive plays. We talked about it with Jake Briningstool. You got to be able to find TJ Moore or Bryant Wesco or Antonio Williams down the field at least once or twice in this game. It doesn't need to be hit you over the head Tennessee type offense where you hit those big plays over and over and over again, although Tennessee's been a little bit different this year. But in general, you don't need to hit a million of them. You do need to hit a couple. You do need to hit a couple to keep everything honest and make sure you open those run lanes for Phil Maffa because that's the way you're going to win this game, on the back of Phil Maffa. But you got to find the explosives to get the openings for him the way that you want him to. So going to be interesting to watch Clemson execute those. And then for Pitt, I think the pass protection is huge. You're going to have to make sure that you hold up against this unit that this Pitt front has not necessarily been great. They've been solid enough. They've kept Holstein clean for the majority of this season, but as of late, it's been getting a little bit porous, and that's kind of led to a couple of the injuries that Holstein has dealt with. So definitely something to watch here, and especially with the aggression and the physicality just in general of this Clemson defensive line. It's it's going to be a lot to deal with, but they're going to have to if they're going to want to get out of here with a win. And then you got to get enough from the run game, whether that's the quarterbacks, whether that's Desmond Reed or a million other guys on that team playing around with different end arounds with the wide receivers. I don't know. But at the end of the day, Clemson gave up only 40 yards on the ground to Virginia Tech last week. It's a really good running football team. So if Pitt cannot get that going, if they can't get Desmond Reed going, if they can't get Holstein on a couple of read options or whatever, it's going to be a really long day, and they can't just outright step back and pass the ball the entire time because, as we talked about, that pass rush is going to get after him in a hurry. And then, finally, confused Cade Klubnik. He is one of those quarterbacks that felt like he was really hitting his stride, felt like he was doing a lot of great things. He was also hitting a lot of open receivers. He was hitting a lot of guys that didn't necessarily have anyone within 5 yards of them. So now you're going to have to make sure you confuse him a little bit on the back end, whether that means rushing only 4 guys and dropping 7 into coverage and just trusting the guys up front, whether that looks like dropping 6 guys and just playing around with different coverages, different formations, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I do think you can get a couple of mistakes from him. Maybe they won't be turnovers, but absolutely is someone that you can get a couple of mistakes from, and then you can really take hold of this game. If you can confuse him on that back end, get a couple of picks, then this entire thing changes and your offense can really get going. The thing is, I haven't seen that offense get going in a couple of weeks, and I'm not going to bet for him to get going against this Clemson defense. Now, I don't think Clemson's going to pull away in this game. I don't think it's going to be all that pretty, but I do think Clemson gets the win. I think they get the win 27-20. I think Pitt probably covers that spread of 10, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a very interesting game and might just come down to who is a little bit more mentally ready for this one. Both these teams have kind of been beaten down over the last couple of weeks, and they're looking for a big bounce back. This will be the place to get it. So we'll see what happens there, and definitely one of those teams is going home, proverbially going home in the CFP race, and one of those teams is going on and putting all of the pressure on Miami the rest of the way. So going to be really interesting to watch. I think Clemson probably needs that win a little bit more than Pitt, but definitely will be interesting to watch how all of that unfolds. But we'll break it down, obviously, on next week's show when it all wraps up. But let's take our second break here. And when we come back, we got to talk about a couple of upset alerts in the SEC. Texas heads over to Arkansas for a little bit of a rivalry there. And then LSU to Florida for a team that in Florida that just begging for a win. So we'll break it down right after this.